Welcome back to Mitten State Sports Corner. It is gut check victory week for both our Lions and Wolverines. What a week. What a weekend for them. So let's send it over to Brett with 1T. Get his initial thoughts on a good weekend for our sports teams.
Initial gut feeling is that Michigan changed my mind a little bit on what they can be or will be this season. Gut check on the Lions is they stood the test that I expected them, and they brought Arizona back to earth, which was great to see.
Yeah, it was both of them need to come out ex big because they had a Michigan obviously has had a disappointing start to the season. Lions had a disappointing last week, so this week it was definitely huge for them to actually like go out, put their foot down a little bit, and be like, "Hey, we're still here. We're still good teams." So we're gonna jump into the Wolverines first. We'll get into their talk a little about Michigan, USC. USC coming to the Big House for the first time since I think it was 1958,
It's been a
and
bit.
the first meeting between the two teams since the 2007 Rose Bowl. A new Big Ten conference member, their first Big Ten game coming all the way to Ann Arbor from LA. So
Hmm.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So let's jump in. So a nice 27-24 victory for our Michigan Wolverines. Hell of a first half. Third quarter was abysmal. Majority of the fourth quarter was also abysmal, but they pulled out the victory.
Yeah, I would say, about as good a first half as we could have expected. I don't even know that I expected them to play as good as they did in the first half, but they did. And, they really, I remember we talked about this, right around that halftime mark. I was really impressed with how they played. I thought, man, they keep this up, they got a really good chance of doing some damage, this season. But I think they basically just played the way that people expected them to play earlier this season. The defense was really awesome in most all aspects of the game. A couple of blunders, couple of guys. What sucked for me is like I think two of their touchdowns in the second half, the guys were not within 5 yards of a defender. That was concerning. It wasn't just a one-time blip, guy blew coverage, like it was more than once. Um, and with the scheme questions, that we've had recently, that part to me is a little intriguing. Uh, but they did they the third quarter was bad. The third quarter was bad. Lincoln Riley made all the adjustments, and it looked like we made none. Looked like we
Mhm.
tried to go out and do the same exact thing that we did in the first half, which does not work. Uh, but credit the run game. 290 yards, I believe they finished with 32 passing yards. That was fantastic. Orgy had more rush yards than pass yards. That's a fact.
Mhm.
And I know he's already been announced the starter for next week. So with more coming out today saying he's got a little bit more of a game plan for him, but he basically just wanted to see him limit the turnovers, and keep us in the game, and basically not cost us, which he did those things. Uh, but you are looking for a little more flair, a little more damage, or if a team makes a mistake, you make them pay for it, that kind of stuff. But overall, a pretty solid game. Overall by the team. Will Johnson with another pick six. Now we got a school record holder for pick sixes. That was good to see, but yeah, really a little bit left to be desired still with the offense.
Yeah, good on them to get the victory. I definitely didn't have too much confidence in it, considering how the first 3 weeks went, and then obviously we're throwing in Orgy as QB1 with as everyone knows, no passing game whatsoever. So it's like, so how are we going to play a top 25 team with no pass game?
Yep.
But the defense obviously came out and set the tone. But offense got the ball, but didn't do anything. But the defense came out and that was their first drive. They pinned them, I think, off the punt and behind the 5, and they kept them down there.
Hmm.
They made them punt from their end zone. So the defense set the tone early, and they played great in that first half, where
Right.
they were getting so much pressure on Miller Moss. He couldn't do anything back there in the first half. And then their run game obviously couldn't do anything. The run defense was stout. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant definitely made their presence known
Sure.
finally. Like they've had a little bit of a rough start to the season, but I think that's because people know who they are and they're doubling up on
Oh
them.
yeah.
As like people don't throw Will Johnson's way too much anymore because of people know who they are now. But all things considered, and then you saw late first quarter that the offense started to get a groove a little bit. We didn't see too much of like this like creative play calling that we were hoping for that with Orgy back there where they would have a little bit more run creativity because obviously as everyone knows if Orgy's in the game he's 99% of the time going to run the ball or there's going to be some sort of run play.
Yeah.
We didn't see too much of the creativity. We saw a lot of Just quick handoff, go up the middle, trying to find your hole. We saw that pitch play a few times, which always works. We saw, I think it was a swing route with Frederick Moore later towards the end of the game where he did get a first down. Edwards busted out a good run, but obviously we got to talk about the MVP of the game. Who is it?
MVP of the game?
Oh, yeah, come on. We all know.
Khalil Mullings.
Khalil Mullings.
Yeah.
A dog. Just a straight dog. He, from this outside of the game, man, and we've said this every week when he gets the ball, man, he just runs with so much intensity every single time. He just churns and burns. He's not the fastest guy, but he's going to out effort you every single time.
It's interesting. You watch him run, and it's like he's running downhill to sack the quarterback, and he just happens to have a football in his arm.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. How similarly he plays like a defender while being on offense. It's kind of intriguing. But he bullied USC's line all game. Quite frankly, I mean I think he had 2 runs that I can recall offhand that were 40+ yards.
Well, yeah, and one was the touchdown the first half. I think that was a 50-ish yarder.
Right.
And then there was obviously the
last
63-yard.
Yeah,
get out of my damn way. I'm going.
And that's
run.
exactly my point there. Is it was pretty much like, all right, well, this game's in our hands, and I'm going to go down there and show them how it's done, and bully them right out of the way, and that he did. I thought USC, quite frankly, defensively played a good game. I think they really played us how they should have. They stacked the box. They made us throw, which we didn't do. And, they said, you know what, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us through the air. And we didn't, right? Like, that's not what happened. We happened to break about 3 big run plays that changed the game. The pick six didn't help them at all, obviously. But, like, if I'm USC, I'm feeling pretty salty about this game because this is definitely a game that they could have won. I think schematically, just no bias aside, I think schematically they had a better scheme for the game than we did.
You look at it, obviously, you bring up a good point of where you feel like USC probably thinks they should have won this game. But if you look at a tale of two halves, first half, USC didn't want it. Michigan wanted it.
Right.
Michigan was
That's
1,000% the better team in the first half.
For sure.
But then the second half comes around, and USC, it's literally flip-flop. You have Michigan. It looks like Michigan went into that conservative mode. They're like, we're going to try and conserve this 14-3 lead,
right,
which was erased quickly because USC went right down the field coming out at halftime. And so USC came out with an intensity that said, no, it's a whole new game. It's a whole new half, whole new game. We're made the adjustments. We couldn't run the ball in the first half, so we're going to start throwing the ball. And boy, did they have success throwing the ball. So that's back to the scheme part that we have trouble with, of where, man, if you got a quarterback that can throw the ball, man, they're gonna have a heyday against Michigan, because the way they play their corners and the way they play this kind of like soft coverage zone defense, where they literally just sit there and let them catch the ball, then try and tackle them. They don't try to contest the pass too much anymore.
Yeah, I don't know what's changed other than the coordinator, and I don't even like to put it all on Martindale because I know we've lost a lot of players. What's interesting to me, and I spoke of this earlier, is that you've got a bunch of guys that were very successful last year. Granted, they were surrounded by better players. That's just a fact. But you got guys like Will Johnson, Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, Makari Page, who have been out of place this year at times, when they were not in the last several years. And that, I guess that to me is concerning, because better teams are going to expose the hell out of us for that, and they're going to burn us. We're not going to be in the game. The only reason we were in the game was the defense. The defense stood tall several times, pinned them back.
I would say majority of the D-line, though.
For sure. And they played a really solid game.
The D-line got a lot of pressure.
Well, even there was some other names. TJ Guy stood up and had some really good plays.
You heard of his name. Josiah Stewart had another.
Josiah Stewart was a beast all day long. Like he's going up. He may be first Big Ten All Selection this year, because I got to tell you, I mean, he has been a menace. Really, he has been. And the only reason he's not getting talked about is because you got Graham and Grant down there, right? And they're the ones everybody knows already. But Stewart has been setting the edge. And if you've noticed, the stuff that most people don't see is typically they're not running plays on his side of the ball. So when he switches to the left side or right side, you're noticing that he'll go up and they'll call an audible, and they may run the same play, but they're running it the opposite direction, because they don't want to deal with Stewart, because they know he's going to hold that edge a lot better. And so, again, with a tiny bit of offense, this team can be really great. There's no doubt about it. But you're not going to be able to run your way all the way to the playoffs. You're going to need to be able to burn some teams with a couple of key clutch passes late in the game.
So Josiah Stewart, he had 4 total tackles, 3 of them for loss, and 2 of them were sacks.
Yeah, I mean, he was all over the
I
map.
mean, that's
That's incredible.
he didn't lead the team in tackles,
Didn't
but
need
he
to.
definitely had the most impressive stat line of
Right.
as far as tackles go.
Absolutely, he did.
The most impactful, you should say, for sure.
And he was very successful at Coastal Carolina. I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't like he, was some random pickup. I mean, he was very successful for them and has been really good for us too.
So I want to bring back something that you mentioned earlier, where Michigan just had those like couple extra like explosive plays
Yeah.
that really set them apart. Lincoln Riley's press conference is he actually did mention that. He mentioned that it was it was a very close game, but just Michigan had a couple more of those explosive plays that obviously it made that created that difference. So the things you look at, obviously you look at Mullings' 53-yard touchdown in the first quarter, and then you had Donovan Edwards, I think was also a 50-yarder, and then obviously you got the Mullings 63-yarder on
Yeah.
that 90-yard drive where they threw it once only for 9 yards and they ran everything else. So
Yeah. I mean,
Michigan it was definitely a great game. It was a great game between two good teams, and but you got them. Michigan did. It was like a gut check victory. They
yes.
needed to go out there. They needed to because obviously the narrative about this team to start the year, I was through the first 3 games, is you go out and look very less than impressive against Fresno State. Then you lay an egg against Texas, and then last week you still don't look like there's almost regression.
Yeah.
And then obviously and then comes Big Ten conference play, and you got a ranked team coming to town. It's a blue chip program. It's two storied programs going at each other. There's a lot of hype around the game,
Yeah.
and you go out and you do get a signature victory
Oh, absolutely.
in Sherrone Moore's first year.
Yeah, these are the games you got to win, right? I mean, like
Yes.
you have to go out and win these games, and and again, I as much as I hate Ohio State, right? Like nobody's expecting you to win that game every year. That's just unrealistic. They have good teams too, and so those games to me are unless you're on like the run that we've been on, like typically those games are 50-50 games. Both teams can be great. It's going to depend on a few plays, right? But you got to beat the USC's. You got to beat Washington. You got to beat Michigan State typically. You've got to beat, UCLA. There's other teams you're going to have to beat, right? And, having a ranked win early in the year to follow up the drubbing that Texas gave us. Although, like I said, if this is like our worst loss of the year is Texas, I'm good with that because that'll put us in the playoff.
Hmm.
Now, Oregon looked very pedestrian the first few weeks. They've turned it on recently. They looked a lot better. So I do know that they're going to come guns a-blazing. And again, the only saving grace I feel with that particular game is at home. I think going on the road to Oregon this year would have been a disaster. I really do. I think it would have been an absolute disaster. So being at home is a big deal. They're going to have to tighten this up big time. I mean, again, he doesn't have to throw for 300 yards, but he needs to throw for a buck 50, right? He's going to have to throw for, like you said, 60% of his passes got to be completed. And I don't care if his air yards or whatever stat you want to use now, they don't have to be 10-yard throws. They can be 3 to 4. You get some decent blocking.
Hmm.
You got to scheme it for what you have.
And so you got to
We
figure
don't
something
have,
out.
yeah, we don't have McCarthy. We don't have Corum. We don't have, the receivers that we've had in the past. Those are facts, right? But what we have Al Georgie. We've got Tyler Morris. We've got Frederick Moore. We've got Donovan Edwards. We've got Mullings. You have a new set of players, which means a new set of schemes, a new set of plays. And, the best coaches out there adapt to who they have. Do you think that Kyle Shanahan runs the exact same playbook when McCaffrey's out, when Ayuk's out, when Debo's out? No, he has to change to adapt to who he's got, right? And I use that example because I feel like Kyle Shanahan's been very successful in the last several years, although he hasn't won the Super Bowl. Been very successful in doing just that, taking his base scheme or playbook and adapting it to the players on the field. And I think that's something that Michigan has to do. They have to be able to figure that out. There's a lot of NFL talent on this team, and it's just got to show more. That's all.
Like obviously you can't discredit the win whatsoever, but
No,
you're not going to win like that
no,
every week, especially now that you're getting into the hard part of your schedule. I would say
meat of the schedule.
the meat of the schedule. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, you're getting into that. So you're in Big Ten play now. Obviously, Minnesota comes to town this week. You got to go to Washington. Illinois is obviously looking plenty more difficult than it did to start the year.
Indiana's 4-0.
Indiana, and then obviously Michigan State has improved, and then you still got Oregon in there. You got Ohio State.
Right.
So you do got to figure out a passing because you're not going to be able to win a game just running the ball every single week. You're like
No.
we're not a service one of the service teams like the service
Hmm.
school teams where
Yeah,
that's all they got. And but you see they're not really that successful. They don't win many games doing it. So you got to figure something out. Orgy does have an arm. You just got to
yeah,
figure out a play. You got to figure out plays that work.
yeah,
He's also got to get help from his receivers and his tight ends to
for sure.
get that separation, run the right route, make it work. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of times he did throw the ball and it was a good thrown ball, but it just the receiver didn't get any separation or anything.
Well, if you remember, we brought a couple points to that during the game. Like, I was impressed with the passes that he was throwing. They were not behind. They were not in a spot where the defender can have a chance to make a play on the ball. It's like either my guy's getting it or nobody's getting it. And I will tell you that speaks of a decent level of maturity level in a quarterback because you see a lot of guys in college that'll just sling it out there. They go Jameis Winston on
No,
everybody.
that was Davis Warren's problem.
For sure. And it's like, I appreciate the aggressiveness. I appreciate you trying to make that big play. I appreciate you trying to thread the needle or fit it in a tight window. But like this team doesn't need that. Ohio State needs that, right? Like Oregon needs that. Tennessee needs that, right? Like those explosive offenses. Michigan will never be an explosive offense. That's just not who they are. But you do need to be able to complete the 5, 10, 15-yard plays every now and then to keep the defenders from. I mean, who was it? I want to say it was one of the guys we talked to out in the yard was like, the biggest problem is these guys, the defenders are stacking the box. They're 7 yards off the line of scrimmage. The safeties are 7 yards off the line of scrimmage on most every play. And it's like, I mean, you're telling me that none of the receivers on the roster can get downfield quicker than that safety can backpedal? I don't buy it. You got to every now and then you got to send them. And another thing I noticed, which was intriguing as well, the plays that they did have Alex throwing the ball, there was only two wideouts. Part of me says that the reason that is because the offensive line struggles. They kept the tight ends tucked in for blocking. That's fine. However, one of two things has got to happen. A, they either got to find a way to block better, right? And allow those tight ends to flush out. Granted, not having Colson Loveland was a big difference. But you can't tell me you can't have those guys initially block and then go out for the 4 or 5 yard slants, 4 or 5 yard curl routes, right? Get past that initial rush, and they can do some damage. Let your speedy playmakers make plays in space. And again, it's just about scheme, right? It's calling those plays, getting them outside the numbers. We're going to have Colson Loveland back this week, it sounds like, according to Moore's update. It sounds like he could have possibly played this week, but out of precaution. So that's wonderful news. But I'm here to tell you right now that Colson Loveland is not the only guy on the team that can catch the ball. So we need to find out who else can catch the ball and how we're going to do it.
I'm
That's the challenge.
I'm just curious about like because have we ever even in recent memory have we seen a Michigan wide receiver just literally turn and burn a route and just burn his defender?
No,
Like I in these first four games, I have not seen a Michigan receiver literally wide open because he burned his guy.
no.
It seems like every time Michigan tries to, and it seems like on every like throwing play that they have, it's and they're throwing it to a receiver. The guy's there in coverage,
Yeah,
so there's no separation.
right.
I don't know if it's obviously you're just not calling a good route and it's just not working, or maybe these receivers aren't as athletic as we think.
Could be a little
But we
both.
but we don't know.
Right.
We really don't know because we don't have anything concrete to go off of to determine of like because we do have something concrete to go off of like Mullings is running back one.
For sure.
Like
No doubt about
no
it
doubt
now.
about it.
No doubt about it.
But we don't have anything in the passing game to determine it's like because we through the first 4 weeks we haven't had a quarterback that can throw the ball
Consistently.
consistently.
Yeah.
And the only like experienced receiver we really have is Loveland.
Ask yourself this question. What are your thoughts on sending Edwards more out on receiver
Please
routes?
do. Why not? He's shown that he can do that.
Yeah.
Like that's been part of the playbook as some of the creative plays in the last 3 years that they've used.
Yes.
Why they didn't even try that on Saturday was beyond me. I thought giving Orgy's under center now, and Mullings has shown that definitely got he's got the ball rolling more than Edwards is right now.
for sure.
1,000%.
No doubt.
So I thought they would switch it up a little bit where they put all three of them on the field at once. But that's when you have Edwards go out for that screen pass or
Yeah.
whatever. Do something.
Well, and that's part of, you can line all three of them out there at the same time and you do something different each time.
Yeah.
And now the team goes, shoot, well, the last time they were out here, they threw the ball. But the time before that, they ran the ball. And man, now are they going to go deep? Like, if you get them to question that or hesitate for 2 seconds, you've won the play. You know, what people fail to realize is every play in a team's playbook is designed to score. So if it doesn't score, technically somebody blew their assignment, right? Like that's technically what happens. Or the other team plays it very well. But like typically somebody blew an assignment. Now, granted, we all know you're not going to score on every play. It's not realistic. But I'm telling you right now, we witnessed on Saturday at least 4 or 5 times where Edwards or whomever had a seam and didn't take the seam. They had a hole that the line did give them. They didn't take it. They tried to go wide instead of cutting back, right? But one of Blake Corum's best attributes was the cutback. I mean, you have to, as a running back, I'm sorry, you have to be able to do that. These guys are getting paid now, right? So you're gonna get paid like adults. We're gonna play like adults, right? So I'm sorry, but if you're making a couple $1 million a year to run the ball, it better not be between the tackles only. It better not be, well, it's not there in the middle. I guess I'll run to the outside. No, it needs to be a bounce back. It needs to be a cutback. It needs to be double reverse. There needs to be creativity, and that falls on the coaching staff as well. But a lot of it also falls on the players to execute, which I do not feel has happened all the time. And I especially point this to Edwards, who, again, I love Edwards. He's been a big player in our run. He's been a really big leader on this team, but he's not ran the ball well for 2 years now, a year and a half. He didn't run well last year. He had big plays, but he did not run the ball well last year.
He's not running the ball consistently. He's had those like explosive plays like obviously in the national championship game he had those, and then he had this run in this past game, but he doesn't do that on a consistent basis. He's only getting those like 2-3 yards because he's just running up the gut every single time. He's not really he's not seeking it out. He's just going.
Yeah.
But see, yeah, I don't know what's going on here, but obviously it's clear as day that Mullings is running back one, and he should get the carries as such. I mean, that's the only like.
Yeah.
How do you not?
I don't know how you argue with that, truthfully.
Exactly.
Mullings
Like
has been great.
he really has, and he's obviously he played great week one, and in a lackluster offensive effort there, he was a bright spot, and then you can't say much about the Texas game, so we'll just skip that. But
No.
then he was obviously the bright spot against Arkansas State last week too,
Mm-hmm.
where he had quite a few good runs in that one as well.
Yeah.
He's the one. He's the one that's running on a more consistent basis, where he's getting you those good 7-yard chunk plays on first down, and then he's busting out that 15 to 20 yarder every now and then.
Right.
He doesn't get stopped behind the line too often. He doesn't get stopped for 1 or 2 yards too often.
It seems like when he does get initially contacted behind the line, he at least fights his way back to the line. He is so strong. He really is. He's so strong. I want to say it was the last drive of the game, and I don't know this for sure, but it was the spin move where he had a guy literally dragging him down by his
That was the
legs.
63-yarder. Yeah,
Okay,
he
so it's
had
at
the
the end
two
of the game.
guys. He had the two
Two
guys on
guys
him.
on him, spun them both out,
He
and ran.
he drugged that guy for I think like 5 yards.
He did, and it's like
because that guy had him before the first down.
absolutely did, and that is way harder than it looks. That is
hmm
way harder than that looks. He is just that strong.
hmm
Um,
I think
at
that
this point, I think we talked about it before. Now you cannot question he is number running back one. There's
I
no
think
question.
I think that run it just shows that how much of his effort and compete level is.
Yeah,
Because and we've said this like he doesn't stop like he's not the fastest one, but he's definitely a stronger one.
for sure.
He's definitely got he doesn't stop moving his legs.
He
You
doesn't,
see him like if he goes into a pile, you can still see his legs going.
for sure.
And obviously you see in how many tackles he does break. His yards after contact is pretty it's got to be impressive. I haven't looked up the actual number,
Hmm.
but it's got to be good because he does shed a lot of tackles, and you saw that on that. Honestly, probably the best college football play of the day was that 63-yard run.
Well, and I'll tell you this too. I think that a lot of things corrected themselves this week. Breaking tackles on multiple accounts was one of them. Defensively, making tackles was much
Their
better.
tackling game was definitely much
Tackling
better.
was much
Yes,
better. I honestly can either tell that A, they figured it out, or B, they worked the hell out of it
because
this
how
week.
many missed tackles have we seen the first 3 weeks
Too
behind the
many.
line?
Too many.
But and then this week, how
There was
I
a
gotta look
couple
at
this
how many
week.
tackles for loss. There was,
There was a
yes.
couple
Obviously, it
still
wasn't a
this week, but
perfect game,
no, but
but it
much
was
better.
much much better. I got what was the total tackles for loss that they had?
Well, and
They had 8 tackles for loss
mhm.
for the whole game. Obviously, Jahir Hill had one, Mason Graham had one, Zeke Berry had 1.5, Hossman had a half one, Stewart had 3, and Kenneth Grant had 1. So
Yeah.
they definitely they got pressure into the backfield a lot more than they had in the first 3 weeks, which
Yep.
was a great sign that like okay, we're doing something here.
Mhm.
And like they said, their tackling was so much better because that also has been a very bad like look the last few weeks as well. But there is one thing I do want to bring up about play calling, and
Uh-huh.
it's actually been a thing that Michigan's done for years, and
Okay.
I even saw it in the Lions game a little bit yesterday.
Well, yeah, what you got?
If you're it's like 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and obviously you're doing like a little pass play or whatever. Why are the routes always short of the sticks? Like it's a 3rd and 7, you're throwing a 3 yard pass on a 3rd and 7, and then you're hoping the guy what breaks 3 tackles to get the extra 3 yards.
That's unrealistic. It's not going to
It's
work.
infuriating. Like I've seen the Lions do it a ton.
Yep.
Michigan's known to been doing it for
Yeah.
years,
That's coaching.
and it's because we even saw it in the Michigan game too a few times where it's just like it was a 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, and they do that little pass play that works for Orgy,
Mhm.
but it's only for 2 yards,
Mhm.
and it's like, but we need 6. You mean to tell me you can't run that same play for just another 3 more yards to get? Well, hey, get to the first down and then make your cut.
Yeah. Now, change tune a tad, right? Well, we'll wrap up the Michigan talk here. We had a good week. We had a good week in Pioneer parking lot this week. Talked to a lot of people. Brett ran some trivia. He brought a bunch of trivia questions for us this week. Um, I got about 3 right. Even on the third time he'd asked them, I got 3 right. And
Gave him a lot of hints too.
too many hints. But that's okay. I'm not here for the trivia. I'm here for the good looks.
No,
And
that's
that's
not you at all.
yeah. And but we talked to a lot of people. We gave away a bunch of gift cards this week. We plan to do it again this upcoming week. But the biggest thing is we need people to come stop and say, "Hey, right? Come talk. Come
We
talk
had
sports with us."
quite a few people stopped by and
And
said hi, which was cool.
yeah, and that's what it's about. And it was intriguing to hear from that faculty member, if you remember,
Yes.
that our
Hmm.
name is getting around the school. I find that to be awesome.
I really hope he's not just like getting it mixed up with something else and he was actually being serious. But that's
Yeah.
just me being like, oh, that can't be true.
I know, and I didn't really believe it either, but the more he kept saying it, I'm like, man, this might actually be true. So, thank you to all of you. Really, I mean, you guys are the reason why, and I hopefully we can keep this going. Um,
What was the name of that guy from he's from Muskegon. He said he just stood there and talked to us about just sports for 20 minutes. What was his
the old
name?
man,
Yeah, what
he's
was
from
his
Oklahoma.
Yeah, he's from Oklahoma. He lives out in Muskegon, he said.
What was his name?
I don't remember his name, but
I
he
don't
was
either.
super nice.
He was.
He
He
was
talked
super
to us for a
cool.
while.
Yeah.
Had a nice accent. Shared a beer with us.
Yep.
So that's cool. Um, but it's that kind of stuff, and and really, like I said, it's we've appreciated being down there. We're exhausted, to be honest. It's a long day. Get down there early, get home late. But it's worth it, and we really appreciate being down there and can't wait to see what's coming.
Do I tell my sideline pass story?
You what?
Do I tell my sideline pass story?
Oh, you have to
Oh
tell
my
them. This was pretty
god,
intriguing, guys.
man.
Listen to this.
Sometimes albeit they told me it probably wouldn't have worked anyway. But we're just sitting at our tent, and it was earlier in the morning. Not a lot of people are there yet, and it looked like someone walking by, like from the athletic department. And he had a big old handful of sideline passes,
Mm-hmm.
and he drops one,
Yep.
and he's just going like he's on a mission. He's
Had
going.
no idea he
He didn't
dropped it.
realize he dropped one. I looked around, nobody noticed anything, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna go pick it up. Picked it up, and it's sure as shit, it is a field pass, sideline pass.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I mean, take it and run? But my first reaction was like, obviously, I'm going to wait for him to walk back this way because that's
Yep.
where we were.
Yep.
To get back to the stadium, you'd have to walk right past us.
Yep.
He never came back.
Correct.
He never came back. So I had this pass all day.
Yeah.
And a couple of guys there, one of the guys there at tailgate, actually, he's one of the ushers in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asking him about it. And he's just like, I mean, he's like, you could try, but he's like, I don't, given the kind of pass it is, I'm not too entirely sure if it would work. So obviously, being the honest guy I was, because I didn't want to like step on anyone's toes. I really
No.
definitely didn't want to bite
And,
off more than I
and
can
karma
chew.
always comes back around.
Exactly, it's good karma. I didn't want to bite off more than I can chew, so I took it to a ticket office, and I explained the story, and they said, I mean, you could have tried. It probably wouldn't have worked because of it was a companion pass, so I would have needed to be with actually the group that was on the pass to even get in.
Gotcha.
So, but my idea was if it worked, I was going to go down
We're
for
in.
like a quarter or a half, and then I was going to let you take the other half or whatever.
Which that also we found out would not have worked.
That
either.
would not have worked either.
So we would have had to keep you down there. But either way, that would have been really cool. But I guess cheers to good karma. It better come back. It better come back around because it always seems to come around when it's negative.
Because you know how many people just take that and run and just
Absolutely
go down there.
I would say
and do it.
most people would do that.
But my thing with how I am, I would have gotten down at that side. Say it did work. Say I did get down there. I would have been so nervous the entire time that someone's going to come down and be like, hey, yeah, no, that's not you. Get the hell out of here.
Why do you have that pass?
Yeah,
I don't know. I found it.
Yeah.
Oh, the dog ate my homework. Like,
yeah,
that sounds
get the hell
ridiculous.
out of here.
Yeah.
And then they ban me or some stupid
Yeah, we
shit.
don't need that.
I don't
We
know.
don't need that.
It probably wouldn't have came down to that. I probably just got kicked out. But still, I don't.
I had that drunken fan fall on me.
Yeah.
He fell and landed right on me. I was standing down in the corridor. It's my neck is sore, to be honest with you, but it's just because it got jammed on from above. Like, I'm standing right at the entrance to either go lower bowl, upper bowl, whatever, and the guy is hammered drunk. I mean hammered. Can't stand. Can't do anything. The cops are escorting him out. He's coming down the stairs, and he literally flips over the railing and lands on my head. And I'm like, what the hell just happened, right? Like, I'm obviously startled, rattled, whatever. And it didn't really hurt initially. There was some other things going on that I don't really want to discuss as to why I was there in the first place. But he landed right on me, and I'm like, Jesus. And they escort him out, right? And we get ourselves together. We get outside the stadium.
He's right there,
and
too.
He's right there, hammered again. And what did he do?
Road.
He fell in the middle of the road in front of the stadium, and it was hilarious.
He's walking on the sidewalk.
Hilarious.
And all of a sudden, you just hear thud.
Yeah.
And he's just in the road.
We're like,
good
oh,
Lord,
God,
man.
yeah, no kidding.
I felt so bad for his friend because his friend looked pissed.
Well, we talked about it. I tell you get that way, I'm leaving your ass there. There's no doubt about it.
I would never do that. Because
I know
for one, if I'm going to an event like that, I want to remember it. You
don't want the event to remember you, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't need to get shit-faced to have a good time at a sporting event. Like, I love sports in general. That's the high for me.
The best part is you can get shit-faced at the rink that is 10 minutes away. You don't have to get shit-faced in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
That's just the facts. But keeping it on the football, how about them boys in Honolulu Blue last night?
Another gut check victory. It
was fantastic.
Let's go. Because
my favorite play was the old
hook and ladder.
That was awesome.
Great. So when I was watching the game, I was like, wait, what just happened? It happened all happened so fast because I saw St. Brown catch the ball. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, Gibbs is in the end zone. I'm like, wait, what happened?
Those plays usually happen to us.
Yes.
And we finally pulled one. And I will say, this young season was by far Ben Johnson's best play calling game. Not just because they won, right? They won earlier in the year. It was just the creativity, the timing. It's like old Ben Johnson, right? Well, we unfortunately become a little used to, a little spoiled with. But by far his best play calling game of the season.
Well, just overall, just obviously, last week was a disappointing result. You dominated the Bucs on both sides of the ball, really. You just couldn't get it done in the red zone.
Yeah.
And that was the killer.
I think they were 1 for 7.
Because they literally doubled up their total yards. They aside from Godwin, they stifled that offense.
Yeah. Their defense has been lights out this year.
The defense played very well. And especially in the second half, they played very well.
Mm-hmm. We did have
some stops when they needed to.
We did have some casualties of yesterday's game.
We'll get to that. But
we did. Which sucks.
Yeah, so then obviously, and there was a game at home, and you lose that game at home, and it's a tough loss.
Mm-hmm.
and then you go into and then now first game on the road against a team that's actually surprised some people to start the
They were
year.
averaging, what, 30, 35 points a
Yeah,
game?
yeah, and you held them to 13.
Yeah. Kyler Murray, I read, had a perfect passer rating against the Rams.
Makes sense.
Last week we
Well,
held him to
he
77.
started yesterday, I think 10 for 10.
Yeah, and yesterday we held him to 77 passer rating.
So yeah, then yeah, you first game on the road, which it did look like Ford Field too, by the way. See how much blue was in there? It was great.
Even when like the game was in hand, right, and all the Arizona fans were leaving, the stadium was still mostly full,
Yeah.
and they were all cheering for the Lions. The
Well,
Lions' cheers when they had a big play was louder than Arizona's when they scored.
well,
Facts.
that's obviously just because of what Michigan is, and Arizona is classified as a snowbird state. It's
For
where a
sure,
lot of
there's a lot of
retirees
Michigan
go.
Ganders, a
Yeah,
lot of Michiganders in Arizona,
yeah.
for
So,
sure.
but yeah, so obviously great comeback victory after last week, and it's a stat to show that Jared Goff, I think, is undefeated coming off a loss,
Yeah.
and he plays a hell of a game the next week.
How do you think he did?
He looked so much better. He protected the ball so much better.
He had that really weird 2-minute play at the end of that first half that they called back the defensive touchdown for Arizona.
Yes.
Objectively speaking,
For
I
once,
think they
for
snapped it
once, the
before
call
the.
goes the Lions'
I
way.
agree, but I agree 112%. I just
Don't do it
they
again.
snapped that ball before the 2-minute
Oh,
ticker hit,
1,000% they did.
and then on top of that, it was an awful throw. It was an awful throw.
Yeah, he threw it right into a lineman.
Right, I was terrible.
Right into him.
And that's that boneheaded stuff where you're like, what are you doing?
But
Like,
didn't Goff start 12 for 12 or something like that?
yeah, something like that. And I guess what's weird to me is like if your whole plan was to wait till the 2-minute warning, why'd you snap it in the first place? Just hold the ball. It's way
Yeah,
less room
true,
for error.
true.
Why'd you even snap the ball? Just hold the damn thing.
So Goff is 18 for 23 for 200 yards.
That's a good game.
So
Solid
hell
game.
of a comeback after last week,
For
where
sure.
definitely you could definitely say Goff was one of the, I would say one of
Worst
the
players.
reasons why
Yeah.
definitely they didn't succeed last week. So, but Detroit's run game showed up yesterday. Montgomery over 100 yards.
Oof.
Gibbs at 83 yards.
That run where they took the whole dog pile and ran him
Yes,
down the
that was a
field.
Montgomery run.
That was a Montgomery run. It felt a lot like Mulling's run too.
Yes,
That's exactly what
but
it's like.
finally that 1-2 tandem, literally damn near 200 yards just between those two. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't ask for anything more.
And Gibbs had an interesting stat line you won't see often because of the hook and ladder that we mentioned earlier.
0 receptions for 20 yards.
0 receptions, 20 yards, and a touchdown. You won't see that very often, but it was awesome.
So Gibbs had 100 all-purpose yards then.
Yep.
Montgomery had 120 all-purpose yards.
Yep. Two touchdowns between the two of them.
That's a great stat line for your two running backs right there.
Well, and they hadn't really got the run game going in the last couple of games.
Well, they had it go in week one.
Right.
But last week, I don't know, they just didn't run Montgomery too much. Gibbs had a decent game, but they didn't utilize Montgomery as much last week.
Yeah.
I know it's because obviously the Bucs do have a good run defense, but the play calling was just not there.
Todd Bowles always has a good run defense, I feel like.
The play calling just wasn't there last week. They kept doing screen passes that never worked. It seemed like every series they did a screen pass that either went for no yards or lost 2 or 3.
And yet they played their worst game so far of the young season, and they were still in the game. So
yes.
I like that. I mean, that
of course
that gives you hope for for the season, of course.
And obviously, because of one game where St. Brown doesn't obviously play his best, but I don't think it was because he played his best. I think it's just because their defensive scheme against him.
Yeah,
he has another good game: 7 receptions, 75 yards, and a touchdown. And obviously, he was the give him an assist for the hook and ladder. So
he gave him an apple.
Yeah, give him an apple.
That's right.
So overall, a good game for the Lions. A good, obviously, come back after last week. Yeah, obviously, we weren't able to really talk about. We didn't have an episode to talk about them, but obviously, so good Lions to come back. So let's talk on the defensive front. Obviously, didn't get a lot of sacks like we did against the Bucs. Right. Hutch did have 1. He didn't have his 4.5. How disappointing!
He had 4 or 5 pressures.
How disappointing! He didn't get 5 this time.
We had 4 or 5 pressures, right?
He had 2 QB hits. Yeah. He had 6 total tackles.
So he was still in the game.
Yeah, oh, yeah, he was definitely all over the place.
And I will say though, they had a rookie right tackle that played out of his mind yesterday because he was face touched almost all night, and I would say, quite frankly, held up very well because he replaced the injured Kelvin Beachum. And I mean, I've watched Beachum play for several years in and out of the league, and I got to tell you, I think Hutch would have dominated him. I think the rookie played better. Not here to talk about Arizona's players, but I think, props where they're due. I think he played a really solid game, and if I'm Arizona, he should get some looks going forward at the tackle spot because it wasn't like he went up against some backup. I mean, he went against one of the best defensive players in the league and held his own.
But yeah, let's get into what you were saying. Obviously, the injury bug definitely hit the Lions yesterday.
Bad.
So Davenport out. Who you said Derek Barnes as well?
Derek Barnes, yeah. So Campbell says it's not likely season
But he's
ending,
got some time.
but he's gonna miss significant time. Davenport, who we
Is
just
out
read,
for the year.
is out for the year with a torn tricep.
Ouch.
And Javon Hargraves from San Francisco had the same injury yesterday.
Yeah, and he's out for the year
Out for the
as
year.
well. So
Big
obviously
loss
San
there.
Francisco is dropping like flies right now.
Yeah,
We'll get into the NFL as
that's
a
our
whole
direct.
here.
I feel like is our direct
Yeah.
competitor in the NFC.
Well, we'll get into the NFL as a whole here in just a second. But
Yeah,
Laporta went down with a sprained ankle, so he's listed as day to day.
he had a hamstring injury before that, was it, or knee injury?
Something like that.
Yeah,
But he did play yesterday.
he's not
He was
effective.
how he had 2 receptions.
He hasn't been effective this season yet.
But I don't. They haven't given him the looks. Though is the thing.
Correct. But I know they mentioned that they haven't given him the looks because of the injury in
Makes
off
sense.
season.
Makes
So
sense.
slow start.
So he I did see the play where he did come up hobbling a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
but he is listed as day to day.
Me too.
Who
I'm
else?
day to day also.
You're always day to day.
Man,
Who? Terrion Arnold went out briefly during the game,
every
but he
game
came
this
back.
season.
But he came back. God, how many PIs is Terrion Arnold going to get?
He's got 4, I think they said right
But
now.
that one that got called on him yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
where it looked like, I mean, this is just a thing all around football. It looked like I think the ball was underthrown, or it was overthrown.
And he ran into Tyrion.
Exactly. And
Yes.
and I think that's just such a tough way to call it because like obviously the defender is like he's not doing the interfering. He's literally just trying to run the route with the guy and the other receiver just like what do you I don't know.
I
It's
think
just tough. But yeah, he's got to clean that up a little bit.
I think the intriguing part to note here is that, for all the flack that he's gotten for these PI penalties, there's been equally, if not more, of really good defensive stops.
Yeah.
He is not
He
Jeff
made a great
Okuda.
he made a great one on Marvin Harrison,
I have
which
had
would have been a touchdown.
I have had 3 people now over the course of this early season tell me that Arnold is Jeff Okuda number 2. And I don't buy it one
Not
bit.
yet. You can't go down that road
Well,
yet.
I'm here to tell you Okuda got burned in his first year consistently.
As
Arnold's given up some receptions, but not really touchdowns.
Yeah. You can't put the Jeff Okuda tag just yet. It's only 3 games, dude. It's
Yeah.
only 3 games. You can't go
And
down.
he
You
was
can't go
drafted
there yet.
number 3.
Yeah, you can't.
Arnold was not drafted 3.
Yeah, Arnold was 24.
Correct.
But yeah, you can't go down that road yet. He's definitely shown a little bit more. He's definitely shown more promise. Like he had a little bit of a rough start.
All
Of
rookie
course,
corners do. It's
of
a big,
course.
it's a grown man's game, and although he came from probably one of the most pro-ready defenses in Alabama, I think that definitely helps the situation. But I think he's going to grow into something special. I really do. He's a dog.
I he made some great plays yesterday too. Like obviously he was on Marvin Harrison all game,
Yes.
and he definitely made some. He made quite a few where he contested the pass and he won the battle without getting a penalty.
Yeah.
So to note, without getting one.
Yeah. And those penalties are going to happen. Like I
It-
said, as
it-
a rookie corner, it's
I'm
going to happen.
well, and just in general, it's just like I think 50% of the time you throw a pass play, you're throwing it up to get the pass interference call and get the free 15 or spot foul. That's got to be going through a QB's head sometimes when, say, like their progression on a route's not working. So I'm just gonna toss it up and hope for a PI call. It's got to be what it is because they call it so loosely now, to where even if you just lightly touch them when say it's a jump ball, they're throwing the flag on it. So it's got to be part of like the scheme of the game when it comes down to the stuff like that. I would think.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that, we need to be mindful of, guys, is that Arnold is a rookie. He's a rookie. And there are very few rookies that come in and are pro ready, limited mistakes right out of the gate. Last year, Sam Laporta was the exception to the rule. He was amazing.
Well,
And look at him. He's having a sophomore
even
slump a
those
tad
first few,
bit.
he really turned it on
Yes,
towards the end of the
for
year.
sure.
So
But
you look at it that way.
corner, you hear this all the time from NFL pundits, but defensive back is the hardest position to adjust in the NFL compared to
Well,
college.
and you look at these athletes at wide receiver now.
They're phenomenal.
Wow, like they
6'6", 6'8".
and running like the wind
They're
and
like
just
deer.
and it's got to be one of the toughest positions for sure. But
Yeah, I think overall he played a really good game.
yeah, he definitely looked a lot better for sure. He definitely looked a lot better for sure. Let's look at a little preview to next week.
Mm-hmm.
Monday Night Football. Seattle coming to
Let's
town.
go.
So Monday Night Football against Seattle, who's had a I don't even really know how they have started as far as the year goes. I know Kenneth Walker's been out for a little bit,
3-0.
but they are bringing out the new all. Wait, are they going all black or are they just bring out the black jersey?
No, they're going with the all black and the
Oof.
black helmet with that blue stripe, that matte kind of.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. That's gonna be a good look. I do have to make a comment though. The uniform matchup yesterday with the Cardinals all black against the Lions all white looked very good.
It did. I
It
don't know
looked
how we got
very good
blessed with such a
because
great combination.
I didn't realize that the all black look for Arizona would look that good, and I
I
think they pulled it off, and then obviously Lions countered with an all white.
Mhm.
It looked very good on TV.
Well, the Seahawks this weekend, for context, they beat the Dolphins 24-3.
Uh,
Granted, they don't have Tua, so I get it.
yeah.
Skylar Thompson went down with a rib injury. So then they were down to Tim Boyle, who us Lions fans have
Ooh,
got a lot of
I haven't heard
experience with
that
good
name in a
old Tim
second.
Boyle, which
Why
for
is he
two
still in the
seconds,
league? Why is he
no
still in the
kidding.
league?
You're telling me there is not a better guy out there to throw the ball than Tim Boyle? Tim Boyle, a guy that has a 5,400 career interceptions in freaking college and like one touchdown pass. And he's the best option NFL teams can find. That's ridiculous.
That's why I don't understand
That's
like where
ridiculous.
some of these like you look at what some of these NFL teams has as a backup quarterback, you're like, that's your option.
And it's about money. That's what it is. It's like I don't want to put any money in the backup position because my quarterback's invincible.
Well, it's like the
Well,
Lions tried that Nate Sudfeld project for a couple of years. It's like he's horrible. He
he
was
is
horrible in
he was
college.
terrible. And let me tell you
How
something.
did
If
he get
if
an NFL job?
if I'm Miami, Tua's a good quarterback, right? Good quarterback. Won't take that away from him. He got hurt real bad in college, right at the end of his career, if you remember. He's been hurt a lot in the NFL.
And that's how Jalen Hurts became a thing.
Correct. So I would say of all the teams in the league, besides those that have aging quarterbacks such as Aaron Rodgers, and I don't even know he's not even a quarterback, he's a freaking prima donna. You should invest in the backup position more.
Lions did.
The Lions have a better backup quarterback, no bias aside, than both of the Dolphins' backup quarterbacks
They
combined.
have it. I wouldn't say obviously because you got a little sample size with them, but you definitely have a better backup quarterback situation as far as like
Yeah.
your what you have in your arsenal. So obviously Hendon Hooker, obviously he was a very good college quarterback.
Yeah.
He's got the tools. And you gave him that time in the preseason. He looked good in his preseason.
But like the Seahawks, for example, right? So they held, Miami's leading passer was Skylar Thompson, who went out with a really badly hurt ribs. 13 and 19 for 107. That's their leading passer. Tim Boyle came in. Of course, he can't pass. Tyreek Hill, 3 receptions, 40 yards. On the flip side, let's listen to these stats. These might intrigue you. Geno Smith, 26 of 34 for 289, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Intriguing. Zach Charbonnet, who us Michigan fans are familiar with before his transfer to UCLA, 18 carries, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, my fantasy team felt that one.
I bet. And DK Metcalf, 4 receptions, 104 yards, and a touchdown. So if I didn't watch the game at all, which I did watch a big chunk of it, I went back and watched some, big time. I didn't watch the entire game, but I watched a decent amount. But if I didn't watch the game at all, and I strictly looked at that stat line, the Seahawks had a day offensively. And the picks might
Yeah.
just be them getting too careless maybe with the ball. But I'm telling you, Mike McDonald has got this team playing like Michigan played last year. That's a fact.
And obviously the Seahawks have been a sore in the side of the Lions last couple of years. They've come to Detroit the last couple of years and beat them last
I
couple of
just
years.
don't get it.
So Lions revenge, a Monday night game. Come out, whoop their ass, stake your claim that you are a top team in the NFL
Yes. You
on the
need to
national
play
stage.
like you're Brett on the defensive line in our hockey games. And you
Yes.
got to go out there and puff your chest a little bit and go, I play defense. That's what you got to do. And here we are. Let's do it.
I don't know if that was a compliment or it's shit talk.
That's up to you. Take it how you want it.
So, not necessarily trivia, but I'm going to give you another quarterback that just has no business playing the NFL, but somehow keeps getting NFL jobs. I don't think he does anymore, but he did for years.
Yeah.
Nathan Peterman.
Yeah, he was good in college.
No!
He was good in college. Okay, good. I mean, I retract the good. He was serviceable in college. He's been awful in the NFL.
But he kept getting jobs somehow.
Right. So you're telling me that injuries aside, right? Because Garoppolo's the backup for the Rams. Who would you rather have, Tim Boyle or Jimmy Garoppolo? And I don't care if it's like I said, injuries aside, Garoppolo's a serviceable quarterback at least. I ask yourself this question, folks. This is going to ruffle some feathers. Colin Kaepernick or Tim Boyle?
I see, and
I'm just saying.
like I definitely give as far as all the Kaepernick stuff goes. We're definitely not going to truly go down that road, but I could definitely see it as a point of just like, oh, these guys are getting jobs and I can't.
You're not going to get a job.
So I don't know. It's just tough. Well, but then again, but this was 10 years.
I
ago.
heard though
This
that
is 10
water
years ago.
boys got paid almost six figures. So like, I mean, if we're talking serious business here, Brett, I mean, I think you can be a water boy.
I mean, if
I think you can do it. I give you props on that. I think you could run a mean water bottle.
no, that's Will's job. Remember?
It's not Will's job because he can't do it. So we went without water like 3 times last year.
Yeah, because
You lose all your privileges
he's
there.
the one who he'll say, "No, I'm not showing up an hour before the game." It's like,
Well,
thanks,
and
dude.
Will, I would tell you'd have a chance to defend yourself, but we haven't seen you on the show, even though we've asked.
Yeah.
So like, man, sounds like minor leagues for you.
We'll get it. But let's jump into. Hold on. So
Demotion.
out the gate for the first 3 games, there's been a surprise team that I'm starting to get a little nervous about now. They've played very, very well. Minnesota Vikings.
Ugh. I don't know how they've done it. Not with Sam Darnold.
And they're coming up. We see them in October. We go to Minnesota in October.
Dude, let me tell you something. Sam Darnold
He had a game yesterday, man.
has looked good.
They beat down Houston on both sides of that ball yesterday.
I did not expect that.
I watched it start to finish because a lot of my fantasy was in that game, so I watched it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry for Houston fans because I had to have been terrible
that
to watch
hurt
as a fan. It was terrible to watch as a fantasy manager. I can only imagine if I actually truly cared about the team. I mean,
well, here let's ask ourselves this question here. So Minnesota plays, or they played the Texans like we just mentioned, right? So they beat them. Granted, they're at home. They beat them 34-7.
that's still an ass whooping, no matter if it's home or away.
Correct. 34-7. Okay. Sam Darnold, 17-28 for 181 yards.
4 touchdowns.
4 touchdowns. Aaron Jones, who I still think that Green Bay was ridiculously incompetent on the personnel side for letting him walk. Justin Jefferson, 6 receptions, 81 yards. You held Houston's leading rusher, Cam Akers, 9 carries, 21 yards.
Yeah, don't remind me.
C.J. Stroud.
Don't remind me.
I know he's on your fantasy. C.J. Stroud, 20-31, 215, 1 touchdown, 2 picks.
And those picks weren't not good.
I will say, though, I think what's most impressive of all of that, though, as we mentioned, is still Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
with the ball, man. He didn't.
Did he learn something from all those years with the Jets?
He didn't put the ball into trouble at all. So he looked good, and obviously the Vikings out the gate 3-0, probably the most impressive looking team so far because obviously the Niners are just dropping like flies right now. They've lost damn near their whole offense, and obviously the Bucs got mollywopped by Denver somehow yesterday. Seahawks are 3-0 though.
We play the Vikings 10-20.
Yeah, so 3 games away.
And then we play in the last game of the season, which is ironic. It's not the Packers game.
So, but I would say the most impressive team out the gate has been the Vikings because, albeit the Chiefs are 3-0, they obviously Atlanta gave them a little bit of a push last night. That's for sure. Obviously, Niners are 1-2. Seahawks are 3-0, but gonna be 3-1. Go Lions.
Go Lions.
Steelers 3-0. Let's go Steelers. Not
I
really.
I got to tell you, I'm a little surprised by that.
Justin Fields, he threw the ball 32 times. My lord, I
It sounds
don't think
like
he's ever.
Chicago. Hey, how did Chicago look this week? How'd
um,
they look? Terrible.
Caleb Williams threw 52
Caleb
times.
Williams is literally garbage.
He didn't throw an interception though.
Did you
There is
guys
no
did you
interception.
happen to see the play where they were on, I want to say it was like the 2-yard line, right? They got a chance to win the game. They go to run the ball. 4 out of 5 of the Bears linemen were on the ground.
I didn't see that. No.
And the
Oh, he
Colts
did throw two
defensive
interceptions.
line obviously mowed over them and took them down, right? But if that's not the epitome of the Bears in the last few years, I don't know what is.
Just
Caleb Williams is not going to do anything in this league. I'm here to tell you right now. He was 33-52 for 363 and 2 touchdowns. Everybody's like,
two
"Oh,
interceptions.
great. He had his game. He looked better than last week." No, he didn't. You know when he looks better than last week? When you win games. I'm pretty sure that's your job in this league, right? You do get titles for throwing 5,000 yards. Great. Fantastic. You get the title of being that guy. You get you get you get you get you get a damn participation trophy. You get a page on ESPN. But you know what puts you in the Hall of Fame is
Super
wins,
Bowls.
Super Bowls. So, and I'm sorry, but I don't see Caleb Williams winning one of them. I really don't. A man with painted nails is not winning the Super Bowl. It's not happening.
Oh boy, we're going down that road.
Already did.
Oh jeez,
Sorry, I'm good with ruffling feathers.
Lord. But yeah. So good on the Lions. Minnesota. Not Minnesota. Jeez, we
You
were just
just say
talking about.
go Minnesota.
No,
You've kicked off the
no, I
show.
did not say go Minnesota. I was about to say
Sound like you did.
Minnesota coming to town, but no, they're not. Seattle coming to town Monday night game. So let's go Lions. Let's bring out those black uniforms. Let's put them in their funeral. Let's
Get the
roll.
bagpipes out, folks. It's
Let's
about to be a
roll.
death of the Seahawks day.
Let's roll.
Let's do it.
So, but I think that's got to wrap it up here today. Thank you for sticking around. Extended episodes now because obviously all sports are starting back up. So we obviously we need the more time to talk about things.
That's right.
So obviously we touched on the Wolverines today and the Lions. Gut check victories for both teams. So go blue, go Lions. Minnesota coming to town for the Wolverines at the Big House noon on Sunday. And we got the Seahawks coming to Ford Field on Monday night.
I cannot wait to see this Monday night game. I am super pumped to see how the Lions can uphold themselves to the Seahawks, and especially on the primetime stage at home. Uh, Ford Field's going to be rocking.
Yes, I think they will.
Ford Field is going to be
Especially
rocking.
coming off a victory. Yeah, Monday night game. Yeah, it's gonna be like week one all over again. I think as far as the atmosphere goes.
I agree.
So, but yeah, go Lions, go blue,
Grit.
go Red Wings, go Tigers. Those gritty Tigs.
Go Brett with one T.
Go Brett with two T's.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Thanks again, guys.
Yeah,
We appreciate you, and we will see you on the
yeah.
next one.
Thank you for tuning in.